shuts the boot firmly. She's walking with quite a pace. She just seems quite miffed off, quite annoyed at something. Peter Faulding was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We are told by the search advisor that the bank is steep and B, willows running between the water and the bench.
Doesn't look that steep, does it?
No, it doesn't. She was the first person to notice Willow scurrying between the bench and the kissing gate.
This is a letter that was sent to the coroner by Peter Faulding, and this letter was ignored. And she's got this sly, smug smile. Emma White was massively prominent in the search for Nicola Bulley. The SIO retires early, the police chief dies, and the chief constable retires.
This is side scan, so it sends a signal out and it will hit the target on the bottom and a body will look like a body.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to the channel Break the Ice. I hope everyone is doing fantastic today. So this is the big one. This is my full Nicola Bulley documentary review, but not only that, this is my full review on the whole case, things that I have looked into, things that I have studied and researched. The whole Nicola Bulley case had kind of dwindled up until this documentary came out very, very recently. It was a sleeping giant, which could have been kept, you know, asleep, but the sleeping giant was awoken. In a way, I'm kind of glad because it's got me thinking about a lot more things. Things after the documentary have now surfaced. There is a lot more that people now know about this case, and it's open another can of worms, basically. So yeah, this is my full Nicola Bulley documentary review and also my full Nicola Bulley case review. So let's get the old windows on. Let's talk about the documentary's feel to start off with. Now, the whole feel of the documentary was very cinematic and dramatic. There was like lots of great cinematography that was worthy of the big screen or Netflix. Little staged reconstructions were in there. You got Paul sat in his car. You know, you've got the camera on the rear view mirror with his, like, looking at his eyes. These little reconstructions and reenactments, which I don't think there was any need to do that. You've got Louise and her partner, like, reenacting, sitting there, watching TV, watching Peter Faulding making the statements that he did back then. Were little reconstructions really necessary? I don't think that they were, especially from, like, actual family members. They were effectively paid to relive some of these real life moments that happened to them. Why would Paul want to be set up in his car with a camera in the back saying, right, we're going to film you now. We're going to film the rear view mirror and reenact you driving to look for Nicola. Like, reconstructions, reenactments are not normally done with the real people. It's normally actors. I just found that a bit odd. The whole feel of the production was odd. It felt very, very clean and very crisp and very cinematic and Netflix-esque, if you will. I just find the whole feel a bit odd. It seems that a narrative was being pushed our way from the BBC using this type of method. The production quality and the method, for me, it sucks you in like a movie does, and it makes you really believe in the story. Something more edgy, more rough, more gritty, more real and fly on the wall would have worked and felt a lot better, in my opinion. Even just a simple sit-down interview with everyone that was involved in the documentary, with some nice footage of Nicola and happy times, that would have felt better, in my opinion. It just felt very well orchestrated and choreographed, if you will. Something very off about the whole feel of the documentary. Moving on. I made a lot of points about what I'd like the family to address in the previous video, and I feel like they didn't really address any of them. Am I surprised? No, not really. There's a few things in this video that you will not know. They will be a surprise to you. They're things that I'm privy to, they're things that Peter are privy to, but they are very soon to be things that you are privy to as well, and you deserve to know. There was no mention of the inquest whatsoever. Shock. The screams that were heard. Peter Faulding not being invited to the inquest. The presumption of an accident. No mention of the man in black whatsoever. They totally bypassed it. The inquest was just, I think, like a banner came up in the documentary to say that the inquest ruled accidental drowning. Nothing mentioned about the inquest and all of its inconsistencies. Now, moving on to the family. I mentioned in my 10 things I'd like the family to address is why they're doing the documentary. No one in the family said why they're doing this documentary or what they are trying to get out of it. So I'm left to believe that the BBC simply paid them to make a documentary knowing that it will get a lot of traction because of how big the story was and is. The whole Nicola Bulley missing case story was and now is again huge. The media interest was and is again huge. And I think the BBC, they know this. Rogan Productions know this. And it is a way to get a piece of work out there, a documentary, and to get some great viewing figures. And I think that by using the family as the epicenter of it is a way to make this a real big hit in terms of ratings. Whether it's been a hit with the critics, I would argue maybe not. It's an opportunity for the BBC to get these big ratings and at the same time guide us with a narrative that they want us to believe. Now, what I found quite surprising was how Louise is just quite content to go. I respect Louise's opinion, let me get that across, but she was quite happy to go along with the accident narrative, that it doesn't have to be something sinister. There's so many inconsistencies and problems with this case. There always has been. Police conduct, everything to do with Peter Faulding, the inquest. I could go on and on and on and on, but this case is a mystery and there's lots of things that are wrong. There's lots of things that don't feel right about it. There's too many people that question it, and if too many people question something, more often than not, there's something more going on. So, with so many problems and inconsistencies and question marks with the case, I don't understand why Louise is kind of accepting of the accident hypothesis. But that's her opinion. I just really don't get it at all with everything that comes with this case. Now, Emma White was massively prominent in the search for Nicola Bulley. She did many interviews and media appearances. She housed SGI, you know, when Paul called SGI. She is the one that put them up. The interview with Paul and Dan was done at one of her properties. Was it done at the farm? Not 100%, but I know it was done at one of her properties. She was actually heavily criticised. Whilst it was all going on, a lot of people had conspiracies and thoughts and feelings about her and possible involvement. I never ever did. But she was a prominent figure. If you think about the whole Nicola Bulley case, you think of Nicola Bulley, you think of Paul Ansell, you think of Willow, you think of Peter Faulding, you think of Emma White, you think of Rebecca Smith, you know, to name a few. So, why was Emma not involved? Was she contacted? it didn't say she was contacted. She obviously, some of her interviews and her media appearances were featured, but I don't know if she was contacted. It did say at the end Peter Faulding was contacted, or Peter Faulding declined to take part. No surprise that Peter Faulding decided to decline. A little bit two-faced, this production company, may I add, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. It's a good job he declined, because in part, this was a hit piece against Peter Faulding. The ultimate scapegoat. He was scapegoated when Nicola Bulley was found on the 19th. He was not invited to the inquest. He was scapegoated in the college of policing report, and he's been scapegoated again in this documentary. It's a never-ending cycle, so I'm actually glad that he's now thought, you know what, sod this. I'm standing up for myself and my company and my team and my credibility, and I'm going to show you that what I said is true. And if you've not been living under a rock, go onto his Twitter, go onto his Facebook, and you will see what he has released. He's released a letter, and he's released the images of Nicola Bulley, which he's withheld for a very, very long time, until this documentary scapegoated him once more. Okay, now, one thing that I do want to say, and this is one part of the documentary that really did sadden me, okay? I just want to talk about Nicola's parents, right? My heart goes out to Nicola Bulley's parents. They're clearly very, very mortified and suffering greatly, and I feel very, very sorry for them. They are clearly a pair of grieving parents. You can see it in the eyes. The eyes are a window to the soul. You can see the pain, you can see the anguish, you can see the hurt. So, to Nicola Bulley's parents, I'm very sorry for your loss. No one should have to bury their child, and as a father to a girl, I can sympathise, not that I can feel it, but I can sympathise with the pain that you are going through, especially Ernie as a dad, but to both of you. So much love to Nicola Bulley's parents. I just want to get that out there. I think I'm quite sure that everybody in the family was paid to do this. Whether I agree or other people agree, you've got your reasons for that. I personally don't agree with it, but I think that Nicola Bulley's parents came out of the documentary, I'm not going to say looking good, because that's not the right word, but everyone felt your pain. Everyone sympathises with you. You're clearly distraught parents. So yeah, much love. Now, something I noticed at the very, very start of this documentary is that CCTV footage. Now, this is the first time we've seen this CCTV footage. Kind of, you know, without... Do you remember that footage people have seen before where it kind of looked a little bit doctored? I don't know why it looked like that, but this was like the clear footage, and it's the first time it's been seen in that kind of clear way. But something that I noticed in that is that, now if you watch it, right, you've got Paul putting the girls into the car. You can see that. He's got, on the left-hand side, he puts one in, and on the right-hand side, I think you must have the elder daughter getting into the car herself. So you can see that on the CCTV. Now, if you look at Nicola, she comes out of the back gate. She seems to walk out of the back in a bad mood. She looks quite peed off. She seems to march to the boot. She shuts the boot firmly. She's walking with quite a pace. She just seems quite miffed off, quite annoyed at something. And she doesn't even look or say a word to Paul. Now, you could argue that she's in a rush, but there's no look, there's no bye. She doesn't seem to mouth anything. She just gets into the car. looking quite annoyed. Paul's already at the car with the girls. She comes out the back, marches to the boot, arguably slams the boot, and then walks round to the driver's side, doesn't look at him, doesn't say a word, gets into the car, and then what happens? The footage, it cuts. In the documentary, it cuts. You don't know what happened next. Doesn't seem to me like any words were exchanged between them. They don't look very happy in that moment. She looks annoyed. So I would surmise that an argument may have preceded her getting into that car. It looks like something has happened before she's got into the car. I don't know what. They may have had a row. She may have found something out. He may have found something out. It could be anything. But to me, in my opinion, she looks pretty annoyed when she's getting into that car. Just something that I noticed. Now, also in this documentary, the parents mentioned 2 screams. But they don't go further into these screams, which I found a bit odd. Was this cut from the production company? Like, what did they think the screams were? Would that not be a cause for concern? And this is what's important. And I don't know why they didn't elaborate or go further into this. One scream, in my opinion, may indicate an accident, a slip, a fall into the river, right? You slip into it, you scream, you fall in. But why would there be 2 screams? If you slip and fall into a river, are you going to scream twice? Have you got time to scream twice? It's going to be 1 scream, surely. No one seems to have picked up on that. There was 2 screams said in the documentary, 2. That could be that someone has approached her. That could be that someone's chased her. That could be someone's grabbed her, someone's pushed her. That's why there may be more than 1 scream. 1 scream indicates an accident to me. 2 screams indicates more than an accident. Gonna move on to the police. Now, straight away after, and I made a video about this the other day as well, within 7 minutes, they seem to set up a narrative that the bank was steep and that Willow was running between the water and the bench. And they were surmising that that would indicate that Nicola has fell into the river because Willow is in the area between the water and the bench. Now, that is the first time I and a lot of people have ever heard, A, that it was steep, and B, that Willow was running between the water and the bench. So Sky News footage shows that the bank isn't that steep. Kay Burley says, there's been talk about this bank and if it's steep. It doesn't look very steep to me, she asks her colleague. And he said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't look very steep. And then we see the bank, right? We also hear about a witness saying that they saw Willow running between the bench and the kissing gate. We've heard it. We've seen it. Let's see it now.
And this is the river bank.
We wander down this way. So this is the bank. A lot of people have been asking about the bank and how steep it is. Doesn't look that steep, does it?
No, it doesn't in some areas, but if all the way to the bank, no, it doesn't. But then if you look further down, Kay, there is a bit of a drop.
Are you comfortable going down there?
There is a bit of a drop down there. There was actually another lady who owns a caravan park here. She was the first person to notice Willow scurrying between the bench and the kissing gate just there.
But straight away, we are told by the search advisor that A, the bank is steep, and B, Willow's running between the water and the bench.
In my mind, she was in the water. Got a woman disappears next to a river at the top of a steep bank. But the biggest thing was the dog Willow. She was off the lead. There was nothing to keep her in that location physically, but she wouldn't leave the area between the bench and the water. If Nikki had walked off in a different direction and maybe climbed over a fence and gone across fields, then why would Willow still be between the bench and the water?
Never have I heard it been said, or has a lot of people heard it been said, that Willow was running between the water and the bench. And if she did go in the water, why is Willow not wet? Why is Willow not jumped in? Why has Willow not got a paw wet? Spaniels are water dogs. Nicola's best friend, Willow, apparently, they were so close. So if you want to try and go with that narrative of Willow was between the water and the bench, why is she not even wet? So that is inconsistent with what we've heard. It doesn't even feel honest to me, that. Another thing as well. So the narrative there they're trying to present is Nicola's gone in at that point, right? Now, if you've gone in the water near the bench, well, there's loads of rocks there, as seen in this picture. So if she fell in there, she'd fall onto the rocks. If she fell in there and hit her head and knocked herself out, she'd be lying on the rocks. Unless she's jumped right over, it doesn't make any sense at all. This was all within 7 minutes of the documentary. It feels like they're gaslighting us about Willow and the bench on the water and the steepness of the bank, and that she could just go in there, fall in there. Well, if she did fall in there, she'd land on these rocks, which are pictured. Rebecca Smith. Now, Rebecca Smith never met with Peter Faulding during the search. That's been documented in my interview with Peter Faulding. But she was very happy to take a swipe at him in the documentary, wasn't she? With that sly smile. She talks about how Peter said she's definitely not in the river. We'll get onto that. And she's got this sly, smug smile on her face. And she goes, well, that was a bold thing to say, because she was in the river, wasn't she? Like, what was that smile all about? It was sly, cocky, and it's very inappropriate for the content of the documentary. I've always had a weird feeling about Rebecca Smith. Her attitude in the press conferences, defensive, cocksure. Her attitude in the documentary, smug, sly smile about Peter Faulding saying she's not in the river. Well, why did he say she's not in the river? Because he wasn't allowed to dive his own target, was he? So the reason that he said she wasn't in the river is because when he had to pass over the information of where he's claimed to have found her, he wasn't allowed to go in. It was other divers that went in. And they came back and said that your target is nothing. Why would you be so smug? We're talking about a missing and then a dead mother of 2 daughters here. And you're getting like some kick out of Peter Faulding, like looking like an idiot. Why was she even put in charge of the case of a missing menopausal middle-aged woman who was deemed to have fallen into a river where they believed there was no third-party involvement? When this wasn't Becky Smith's field. That wasn't her normal field of work. Her field was serious crime before she retired early. And this apparently wasn't a crime. It was a missing person case. So why was she put in charge? It doesn't add up. Why was she brought in after 3 days? And why did they lose the previous senior investigating officer? Becky Smith retired 2 weeks before the COP report came out. She was very defensive and had an attitude in press conferences and was very cocksure that Nicola was in the river. Which she was. She was in the river. And Becky Smith was very sure of this. Why? Something else not mentioned in the documentary by anybody. No surprise, again. A lot of the things that I brought up in my 10 things I hope the family address in the documentary. I'm not surprised that they weren't brought up, to be honest with you. Kind of felt that they wouldn't. There was no talk of the 3 police officers that either retired or died all around the same time. What are the odds of the senior investigating officer retiring 2 weeks before the College of Policing report, and then Peter Lawson found dead at his home 3 days after the Q&A that I did with Peter Faulding on my channel, and then not long after that, the Chief Constable of Lancashire Police announcing his retirement. Check this for a timeline. Lancashire Police Senior Officers Timeline. Becky Smith, Senior Investigating Officer, retired around the 5th or 6th of November 2023. She was supposed to retire March 2024. She retired about 2 weeks before the College of Policing report, and she retired 2 weeks before mine and Peter Faulding's interview where he said he found her in the river, and he's got evidence to prove that. College of Policing report and my interview with Peter Faulding were done on the same day. Well, released on the same day. Peter Lawson, the Lancashire Police Chief, he died on the 10th of December 2023, and he died of natural causes, aged 50. 3 days after the live Q&A that I did with Peter Faulding. I don't believe he had any health conditions, and he died of natural causes. Then you've got Chris Rowley, the Chief Constable of Lancashire Police, who announced his retirement on the 2nd of January 2024. These 2 retirements and death happened all within an 8-week period of when the COP, College of Policing report, came out, and when the Peter Faulding interview with myself and the subsequent Q&A came out on my channel. So you've got College of Policing report, Peter Faulding's interview, where he said that he's got the evidence as well, which is now out there in the public domain, and you've got the live Q&A. And within 8 weeks of all that going on, the SIO retires early, the police chief dies, and the chief constable retires, the chief constable announces retirement. All within an 8-week period. Coincidence? What it feels like in this Nicola Bulley case, something has gone wrong within the policing. Something has gone wrong. I don't know what or where or when, but there's been some incompetence, in my opinion. Part of this documentary, to me, seemed like a hit piece on Peter Faulding, right? We'll go further into that. Any opportunity, let's try and scapegoat Peter Faulding. There was no mention from anyone at all in this documentary about Peter Faulding's interview claiming to have found Nicola Bulley that he did with myself. Whether they believed his claims or not, there was no mention of his claims, of the interview, of the Q&A. There was no mention of him saying he has got images of Nicola Bulley. There was no mention that he said he found her and he wasn't allowed to dive. There was no mention whatsoever. That is dodgy. Why would you not even mention that? Makes no sense at all. Now, when Peter first told the police that he'd found a target, whoever dived it came back and said it was nothing. But shadows can't be caused by nothing. Basic. They later said the target was branches. There was no mention that Peter said he's got proof that he'd found Nicola using his high-frequency side-scan sonar. And that he's got the images to prove it. There was no mention of that. And there was no mention that he told the police this information. Peter Faulding has got some of the best sonar equipment on planet Earth. Now let's take a look at SGI's world famous side scan sonar.
This is one of the most high frequency side scan sonars in the world. This will find footprints on the seabed, you know, the riverbed we're searching. This enables us to find missing people extremely quickly. We can scan, when we can scan up to 30 metres out either side of the boat to see a body.
Right.
It's crystal clear.
You've got side sonar?
Yeah, it's
this
is side scan, so it sends a signal out and it will hit the target on the bottom and a body will look like a body.
Right,
so it's that clear. And if people, we conducted searches where firefighters and so on have been walking, searching with poles,
yeah,
we can see their footprints on the bottom.
Oh wow.
It's that good.
How much would a piece of kit like this set you back?
This bit of kit here was, at the time when we bought this 2 years ago, the latest model was £53,000.
£53,000? Just for that
and the cable and that top. But
wow.
it is the best. Then we've got our other ones. We got 3 sonars. So this is another one, which is a slightly different model. Computers built into the lid of here rather than a rugged laptop. And this is our original. This is the bit I like. I was the first person to bring side scan sonar into the UK for forensic use in 1999. I went out to the States. I looked at what they were doing. This is America. This is an antique now.
So you kind of innovated it in this.
Yeah,
country.
I innovated side scan.
You heard that here. Peter Faulding innovated
side scan
sonar in this country.
For forensic service. They were using it in America, but I was the first person.
What year was that?
1999.
1999.
So we done extensive trials with it, and we got down to stages where we could find a lady's handbag in a river with weapons and all sorts. But this is an antique now. But this, in them days, was £33,000.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money. But this kit enables us to bring closure to families quickly. We can search a large reservoir in a day, no problem, and find somebody where divers might never find it. Yeah. This is really, really important underwater search equipment.
What is this massive torpedo, Peter?
Well,
is huge.
Yeah, this is a magnetometer. So this is a giant underwater metal detector. And the idea of this, if you've got a missing car or in a river or something, side scan sonar might see it, but if you've got a massive wide area and it's buried under silt, this will go through the silt and give us a signal. So you've got a buried vehicle under silt or in weed, where the sonar will not see through weed or reeds. You only it'll see down on the riverbed. Yeah. But if there's thick weed and we were looking for something metallic, we might need this. We also use a range of underwater metal detectors as well.
Oh, really?
Which is another important bit of what we've got. We can tow that behind the boat. Anything metallic, quite like a shotgun, this will pick up. This technology has got specialist software. Well, this is quite basic. This is a meter readout. Well, this has got, but that's quite heavy.
That is. That's got a lot. That's got a lot of weight to that.
So this isn't what they call an underwater drone. You know, there's ROVs. I can show you a submarine next door. There's different types of kit we've got.
Oh, wicked. And am I right to think that this wire will connect to here?
Yes.
Which will then connect to the screen, and then your workers, your lads that are on the boat.
You're on myself.
You've got point A, which is the sonar looking for whichever missing person it may be.
Yep.
Into point B, information goes through.
Yep.
Point C, you can see
there.
The
data. And the good thing about this data, it's stored, so it's permanently there.
Yeah.
So I can then go back after a search and review the data.
Yeah.
It gives me the location, and it gives me everything I need to know.
There was no mention that he was refused to dive the target, and there was no mention that he was refused to rescan the area the very next day. He wanted to dive the target. he wanted to rescan the area. He wanted to go back. Wasn't allowed, wasn't allowed, wasn't allowed. So, therefore, in the documentary, because there's no mention that he's refused to dive, and there's no mention that he was refused to rescan, therefore, there's no explanation as to why he was refused either. Very happy to say that Peter Faulding said if she's in the river, he'd find her. They were very happy to show that. They were also very happy to show him saying she's not in the river. Why miss everything else that subsequently came? Why miss out what he said in my interview? Why miss out the sonar images? Why miss out everything that he said to the police? Why miss out that he told the police that he'd found her? Why miss the Q&A out? Why miss everything out that shows that he is declaring that he's found Nicola? Very selective, which says to me, this is an agenda. Now, Peter Faulding has finally released the images, and he released them the day after the documentary to prove that he did see a target and that he did tell the police, and that he wrote a letter last October. The images are available for all to see, with the letter attached. I think there's like 16 pages of letters and images and whatnot. So it's out there, so people can make their own minds up. What do people think of the sonar? Like, let me know in the comments. What do you think about the sonar images? I saw them in late October, early November 2023. And it's exactly how I described it, and I stand by what I described. When I saw the images, it looks like a body lying in the river. For me, you can see like ankle, leg, knees, the depth of one knee below the other, bum region, back going up towards a head area. The back, bum, legs is what's quite prominent to me. We're not the experts though. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people will say, I don't know what I'm looking for. Well, no, because that's not our jobs. Everyone who has a field or a profession knows things that other people don't know. He knows what he's looking for. Now, it's more than fair enough to show all the footage of Peter saying, if she's in the river, then I will find her. And then show him saying she's categorically not in the river. It's absolutely fair to show all that. I get it. I fully get it. I was confused at the time before I met him. I was thinking, you said if she's in the river, you'd find her. And now you're saying she's not in the river. And now she's been found. You know, I was confused. A lot of people were. But a lot more has come to light now. A lot more has come to light. So that's fair enough to show that, but why not show everything else then? Why not show everything he said afterwards, down the line, post-inquest? Why have they missed all that out? Two of the producers of Rogan Productions visited Pete's house earlier in the year. And Peter showed them the images. And he also showed them the live side scan sonar data as it's going down the river. That was running as the boat was going down the river from the bench down to just past the island. So they sat there, saw that data, bench, down the river to the island where Peter claims that he found Nicola Bulley. He showed the producers. And their reactions to seeing the images was one of pure shock. Apparently they both moved close to the screen to have a closer look. And they said it looks like a body to them. Absolutely no mention from the production company about this in the documentary. None at all. Now, Peter advised them to be careful, you know, what they say about him or how they try and paint him out, because he's clearly got the evidence to support his claims. Peter Faulding showed the image of the shadows at first to the police. He had a lot of images kept back. And how good is it that he did? Because now we can show and prove in more detail that he found a body in the river. Make your own mind up on what you think. Look at these images. I'm not going to put them on my channel. I don't need to put them on my channel. They're on countless other channels. Go and find them somewhere. Go to Peter's X or Twitter. Go to his Facebook and they're there. Go and have a look. When she was found, everyone turned to Peter Faulding and blamed him for not finding her, going off his statements. He was told by the divers that searched his target that she wasn't there. No reason to doubt them. The COP report, they blamed him again, saying that he got in the way. And now on the BBC documentary, they throw him under the bus and purposely failing to mention everything that happened afterwards. Like I've said before, the interview and the Q&A and all that kind of stuff. This is a letter that was sent to the coroner by Peter Faulding. And this letter has not been seen before on social media, on YouTube, anywhere. This is what Peter Faulding sent to the coroner. And after everything that's happened and the scapegoatage, which is a word I've made up, and being thrown under the bus, he sent it to me for me to show you. And this letter was ignored. No reply. Dear Dr. Adderley, on Tuesday the 29th of August 2023, I was approached for my views by the National College of Policing, NCP, who are reporting into the conduct and procedures of Lancashire Police during the Nicola Bulley case for the Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner. At that time, I provided copies of evidence that I started scanning in the hot zone near the bench at 10:26 and of the positive high-resolution side-scan sonar target that I identified at 10:32 on the 7th of February 2023, scene closures 1 and 2, of the likely location of the body of Nicola Bulley. This was days before her body was discovered by police in shallows in the tidal section of the river. I was shocked to hear that the NCP had no record of this and had not seen this evidence previously. This evidence was disclosed to the police search advisor, Paul Sir James Pinder, at 10:53 on the 7th of Feb 2023. Scene closure 3. The Northwest Under Search Unit briefly dived the area. I was not present during the dive as I was continuing to sonar upstream, but I believe they either missed the body or possibly searched the wrong area. I am positive about this as I rescanned the area at 1600 hours. Scene closure 4. On the 7th of Feb 2023, after the police team said to me they had searched the area I had identified. And at that time, there was no evidence of any search activity having taken place around the target. Therefore, I feel duty-bound to bring this to your attention, as I suspect that similarly to the NCP team, you may not have seen this evidence either. And therefore, whilst it may or may not change the verdict, I believe it is important in your role that you are made aware of all of the evidence in this case. The images provided are time-stamped. I think that's supposed to say time date stamped. I'm going to read it as is. The images provided are time-stamped on the high-resolution side-scanning sonar software, which is renowned as the best in the world. For you to make any judgment, I do think that it would be best if you could see for yourself. I have a demountable screen, etc., which I could bring to you for you to view the evidence. The NCP team did take the time to look at the images and were very surprised that this was the first time they knew about it, and were grateful that I was able to show them and interpret the imagery, although I don't know the report outcome at this stage. I've enclosed the side scan sonar images of the target seen by the NCP, which I'm able to provide to you too. Please let me know if you are interested in seeing the evidence firsthand or require any information from me. Yours sincerely, Peter. That was ignored. Why was that ignored? That's a very important email to receive. Also, what you will not know is that Peter Faulding was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement once prior to providing evidence for the inquiry, And 4 times during the inquiry meeting, which he refused each and every time. Why would they want him to sign a non-disclosure agreement? Start connecting the dots. Connect them up. All in all, I think this case was handled appallingly. From the moment Nicola went missing. And I think the search was handled very incompetently. And they needed a scapegoat. A fall guy. And that was Peter Faulding. I didn't get much out of this documentary. I wasn't surprised that they didn't touch on very important things. I wasn't surprised that they didn't mention the inquest. I wasn't surprised they didn't mention Peter Faulding's revelations. I feel very sorry for the parents. They're clearly distraught. But something still absolutely stinks with this case. This now asks more questions than it answers. There was no need to do this documentary. It feels like there's a narrative being pushed with it. It feels like an agenda. But it's now asked more questions than it's answered. It's opened up a can of worms. And I feel like it's going to backfire massively. Because evidence has now come out to show that Peter Faulding did find a target. And he did report this target. And that the divers came back and said it was nothing. And now it's up to you to have a look. If you haven't seen the images, I'll just let you know now. They're not graphic. You're not seeing a corpse or anything like that. It's sonar imagery. So there's no like kind of shock factor, There's no trigger warning, I wouldn't say. But you now have the chance to make your own mind up. This is why I've stuck by Peter Faulding throughout this. And told me a long time ago about this. And I saw these images a long time ago. And the whole case stinks. Nothing has really been learned from the documentary, in my opinion. I don't know what has been gained. Rogan Productions, I don't get what this was all about. This wasn't really a documentary, was it? This wasn't telling the whole story, was it? This was a very pick and choose what we'd like to put in kind of story. Which is also known as creating a narrative. Why not put everything in it? Why pick and choose? Why so cinematic? Why all these little reenactments and little reconstructions and stuff? And why throw Peter Faulding under the bus? So there you go. That's my review on the Nicola Bulley case. That's my review on the documentary. Give me your comments, give me your feedback. Like the video, share the video. I'm now going to play 15 minutes of key moments from the interview with Peter Faulding for anyone that's not seen them. This interview was done with me very, very early November 2023. And it's Peter Faulding declaring that he did find Nicola Bulley in the river. If you've not seen that, then hang around. I'm going to play those 15 minutes at the very end of this video. If you want to see the full interview with Peter Faulding, go onto my playlist, Nicola Bulley and Peter Faulding, and the interview is there. There is a lot of Nicola Bulley and Peter Faulding content, so if you'd like to go and check that out, please be my guest. There is lots and lots of content there. I've covered this case from day one, and I'm still covering it now, and I never thought I'd be saying that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned a lot, and I will see you in the next video. So for now, peace out. Why did you say so confidently, if Nicola was in the river, I will find her? I can guarantee you that.
Well, I did find her in the river.
Who was it that called you an SGI in to get involved in the search? Was that the authorities? Was that family? Or?
No, it was family. It was originally Paul, Nicola's partner.
Yeah.
I spoke to Paul, obviously a very distressed man when I spoke to him, and also Emma White, the friend.
How did the police feel about you coming into the search? Were they welcoming and forthcoming in your assistance?
I wouldn't say welcoming. I think they probably didn't want us there in the first place. It often, when others are unable to find things, you know, I get called in with a team, we use our expertise, and then we find.
You're the man who finds things.
We do. Normally I'd be working with a police search advisor very closely, and also the senior investigating officer, which I didn't obviously meet the senior investigating officer on this job. So you would normally get all the information, you know, cell site analysis from, you know, mobile phone data, you would get vulnerabilities, you'd get all other issues that come into it, and then a search plan will be put together, and I may throw my piece in as well to say, actually, I think we need to look at this area. So that's what we normally get, but with this one, we want you to search downriver today. There's two parts of this river. There's the tidal section of the river, which is over the weir and down towards the sea. I mean, the sea's miles away.
Yeah.
So that's where Nicola was eventually found, in that small section of tidal river, over the weir.
Over the weir.
Over the weir.
Okay.
Then you've got the area that goes from the bench, and then it comes down around a long bend down to the weir. That is a non-tidal section. So as the tide comes in and out, it will flood the river, just like on the beach, but it will push the water up on the river, but it won't affect the area where the bench was. So that's a non-tidal section, and very, very slow moving. That is the part where Nicola's phone was found on the bench. So this is what I call the hot zone. So that's where the items, typical where we deal with dementia patients and things like that, where they fall in the river, there's a slipper or something left. So that is the area everyone focused there. And that's what I would have searched that on day one if I'd had the choice, but I didn't have the choice.
The first target that you got on the sonar, what kind of image was that?
It was a clear symmetrical shadows of either two arms or two legs.
Shadows?
It was shadows. To me, it took human form straight away. I knew that, you know, because we're looking for a body, and I know straight away when I see a target like that, with all my experience, this was Nicola. And that's why straight away that I located it. We rescanned it quickly again. I got exactly the same target. And then I contacted.
So you rescanned it again, and you got another image.
What you try to do is you do what they call Union Jack. You go across one way, across the other. But we didn't do. I didn't need to do a Union Jack. I just done a couple of images of it, and I immediately contacted the police search advisor.
So just to clarify, what day and date and time was your first target observed?
Well, the first and only target was, you know, the target we identified was Tuesday the 7th. Of February 2023. I commenced my search at 10:28 that morning, and 6 minutes later at 10:34, I located the target.
So where you were searching on day two, which was this was the area that you wanted to search on day one.
That's correct.
So you would have made that discovery after 6 minutes of arriving on the scene.
Yes,
overall.
That's correct.
So when you made the discovery, the target in the River Wyre, were you 100% sure that's what it was?
I was totally sure that took human form straight away, and it needed to be dived straight away.
Right.
Because it was the shadows of two arms, two legs, whatever, that needed an immediate dive.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to do. When I contacted the police search advisor, I said, we need to put divers in now. We'll put our divers in. But he refused that request, and he said, you're not to dive, we will dive.
Did you believe the discovery of the target to be Nicola, going off the size of it?
I did.
Straight away?
Straight away, yeah.
Can you tell us exactly where this target was found, and how far, more importantly, from the bench was it? I think people will be very interested to know where this target was actually found.
The target was found approximately 75 metres from the bench.
75 metres?
75 metres, just down the river from the bench, which again fits the pattern really of a person who is however she got in the river, and we'll never know, but whether she fell in or she was pushed in or I don't believe she jumped in, but it was one of these. She's in the right area. It's very interesting. During the inquest video, PC Thackeray was they tried to do a reconstruction of how Nicola would have behaved in the water. Now, when a body, like I said before, goes to the bottom, you've got now a police diver. He's laying on his back with a GoPro camera on his head. And he said he's floating down the river, and Nicola would have, bearing in mind he's in a rubber dry suit. Yeah. He's paddling himself along, one-dimensional, because there was no camera crew on the bank filming him, what he was doing. There was just him. And
he's alive.
And he's alive. And he's paddling himself down the river and over the weir. And he said he would have gone down, and she would have about 300 metres down, popped over the weir. That's how she got over there. And firstly, that's not actually independent at all, because he works for Lancashire Police. He's on secondment. Interesting in the video, and this is a really point what people need to see. He said, and Nicola, when I found her, she was on the target, the image, just past a little island in the river. Oh yeah. 75 metres down, it jutted out. It wasn't called an island, it was just where it banked up over the years. Yeah. He said, we searched to this area. I remember searching up to this point, and I think we searched past this bit. I think? Yeah. If you'd done a proper search of that river, Nicola would have been found the same day.
Once you've made that discovery, what's the first thing you do? Is that when you go and speak to the police?
Yes. And it was a phone call on that day. I made a phone call to the police, and then I just sent the image, the screenshot of the laptop, what I had in front of me.
How long before they come back and updated you on what it was that you'd located?
I got a message passed through my dive supervisor to me, and they just come back and said, target's negative, it's nothing.
Target's negative?
Mm. Yeah.
What was your first thoughts when you heard that? Because obviously with your expertise and your experience, you know what you've located, really, don't you?
Well, I was baffled because I'm never wrong on these targets. I wanted obviously to go back and recheck that area.
You wanted to go back? When was this then?
I wanted to go back that day, and we did. So we did go back to that area once the police had gone that afternoon.
Did it reconfirm what you thought you knew?
They were clear. They were very clear. But because the police said to me it was nothing. And I felt pretty deflated, to be honest. And I'm thinking, it can't be nothing, but maybe they're right. And they must be right, because you brought up to trust the police, and I trusted the divers, because I've worked with police divers, they're good divers, and I've got no doubt about that. The bit I wanted to do was get in the water and have a look for ourselves. That was the key bit.
And you weren't able to?
No. The following morning, I asked the police to say, we want to go back and just recheck that area, but that was refused.
You weren't allowed to go back?
No, we weren't allowed to go back, no.
And when was this? Was this the day after you wanted to go back?
This was on the Wednesday, yes.
So Monday's when you arrived, Tuesday's when you made your first discovery on the sonar. Then you went back later on when the police were gone to have another search. And then you asked to go for a third time, basically. So you can't deny you were doing your very best to try and confirm whether this was Nicola or not.
That's what we need to do, is try and confirm or deny that.
When you were told by the police that the target was negative, what was the first thing that you did? And did you go to your team and tell them that something's not quite right here?
Not at the time, I didn't really. It wasn't that initial bit, because I just thought, well, I'm wrong. But I did say to the team, this is a bit odd. That looks like a target to me, a really good target.
A head scratcher.
Yeah, it was a head scratcher, yeah. But again, that's why I went back that afternoon once the police divers had gone, and I didn't want to draw too much attention for the media or anything. We just carried on down the river, and I'd done a few turns around, and it's all shown in the software. You see, the software is geolocated, so it shows of our boat track, and it shows the fins of the sonar going out as well, the swathe. So it's all covered,
So if you were able to go back in on that third day, does your sonar and does your search strategy, is it more kind of honed in? Is it more precise? Do you zoom in, looking for a better word?
I would have gone back if we were allowed, and I would have insisted that our own divers search that area.
And you would have recovered?
Yes,
we would have done. On the 8th of February.
That's correct.
And Nicola Bulley was recovered from the River Wyre on the 19th of February.
The senior investigating officer would never come down. She would never come to the scene. I never saw her.
Is that normal?
Scene. No, not at all. You'd always get an SIO come down and introduce themselves.
I'm just going to be very, very blunt. Why did you say so confidently, if Nicola was in the river, I will find her? I can guarantee you that.
Well, I did find her in the river. And I said from day one that if Nicola was in the river, I would find her. And I still hold to that today. If we had been allowed to dive, and we had been allowed to search the area that we wanted to, on the day we arrived, on Monday the 6th of February 2023, Nicola Bulley would have been located and recovered that day back to her family without fail.
After 6 minutes?
After 6 minutes.
That is a huge revelation.
Not recovered after 6 minutes, but located.
But located?
Yeah. That was how long it took me. No reason whatsoever. I didn't have a fair trial, and I actually done nothing but I went up there to try and help people. And I've been an expert on that database for over 20 years, and I've done so much good work for this country. On
a few occasions on TV, you said that you'd searched the river X amount of times and there was no sign of Nicola. So this is after the 19th.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for this?
When I say there was no sign of Nicola, at that time, I trusted the police with that they had searched that and it was nothing. So it
all boils back to you relaying the target information doesn't it?
I was baffled. We did not get an opportunity to clear that. So I'm assuming I'm wrong. And it's only when I got up later on towards the inquest, when I started to prepare my files, thinking I just need to take these images out of my computer to start looking. And it's all time date stamped when I'm doing it. And it was crystal clear. And I could see her laying there. And that's when I started enhancing the images and looking at them. And that's
when you started thinking, I have got something here.
This is, and then I didn't get invited to the inquest. And then I got very angry. And I thought, I'm now going to wait and see what happens. I know there's a police inquiry coming up, College of Policing. I will get my chance.
On the day of the inquest, there's a news flash that popped up on my phone saying Peter Faulding has not been invited to the inquest. And immediately, I thought, this is not right, this. How can someone who's been such a prominent figure in the search, someone who's done a lot of media, someone who will have a lot to say, how can they not be invited to the inquest? Now, that is what I find to be an insult to the public.
I think it is an insult to the public. But when you look back, when we left the scene, we had no further contact with Lancashire Police whatsoever. So they didn't even request our search file. They didn't even ask for our sonar data. How strange is that? Nothing.
When did you kind of realise that actually you're not getting invited? Did you see it coming?
I had a gut feeling that I wasn't going to be invited because I knew that once I spoke with my credentials and I would have brought that target up. And that would have thrown everything out the window. And I would have turned over PC Thackeray's evidence. I would have turned that over as well. John, my dive supervisor, ex-police officer, diver, was my scribe on the day. So he made sketches and over the exact things what happened. We have our own search report. We sent that to Lancashire Police, to Becky Smith and to a sergeant, I'm not going to name, but she was in the public eye and he wasn't. But it was sent to both of them, the sketches PDF'd, and it was sent the week after we arrived. And it says, target negative, dive by Northwest Underwater Service. So it was clearly that would have been presented. Not even a reply from Becky Smith, or the sergeant, not even a reply to say thank you for sending it.